President Trump says he plans to waste no time in filling the Supreme Court seat left vacant by Justice Anthony Kennedy. Kennedy will retire at the end of next month, giving Mr. Trump a chance to turn the court more solidly to the right for a generation. The president says he will begin the search immediately. But as Nancy Cortes reports, Congress is already divided.
Must dig in.
Senate Democrats joined protesters outside the Supreme Court today, vowing vaguely to block the president's nominee.
Women's access to safe legal abortions on the line.
They argued the Senate's Republican leader should delay a confirmation vote for months, the way he held up and eventually sunk President Obama's pick, Merrick Garland.
Is Senator McConnell prepared to keep this office vacant until after the election? I hope so.
But that hope was quickly dashed.
The Senate will vote to confirm Justice Kennedy's successor this fall.
And because McConnell moved to change the rules last year, Supreme Court nominees can now be confirmed by a simple majority. There are 51 Republican senators.
The president knows he doesn't need Democratic votes.
The president will need a fair-minded and open Congress.
Republicans expect the president to nominate a strong conservative along the lines of his first pick, Neil Gorsuch.
If you look at that list that we had last time, every one of them are really, really good.
Leonard Leo of the Federalist Society helped to craft that list. On CBS This Morning, he downplayed the threat to abortion rights.
I don't think people should be worried about Roe v. Wade or any other particular case.
But the vote could hinge on two pro-abortion rights Republicans.
I don't think that we have a nominee yet.
Alaska's Lisa Murkowski and Maine's Susan Collins, who said today she wants a justice who views Roe v. Wade as settled law.
The prudent course is to wait and see whom the president chooses to nominate.
CBS News chief congressional correspondent Nancy Cortes joins me now from Capitol Hill. Nancy, you mentioned we can expect the president to nominate a true conservative. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means someone who more reliably sides with Republicans, someone along the lines of a Samuel Alito or the newest member of the court, Neil Gorsuch. Anthony Kennedy is someone who is widely respected by Republicans here on Capitol Hill, but certainly they would love to have a justice who they know is almost always going to be on their side of issues like abortion, like labor, like Obamacare. And so they say that's what they are looking for. That's, of course, what makes Democrats so nervous, because sometimes Anthony Kennedy sided with them. They know that whoever the president names, he or she is likely to be a staunch conservative, and they know that that changes the balance of the court, perhaps for a generation.
So, Nancy, how significant is it for the president, for any president really, to have an opportunity to appoint two justices to the Supreme Court bench?
It is massive, and Republicans will tell you that it really validates their decision to stand by Donald Trump, both in the election, when some of them felt that in a lot of ways he didn't really reflect their values or their politics. But the fact that he is the president of the United States and Hillary Clinton is not means that Republicans now have an opportunity in fairly short order to see the balance of power on this court change, or at least be cemented in a more conservative direction. And that means a lot. In fact, many analysts would argue that that is a good part of the reason that Donald Trump was victorious, because suburban voters who were Republicans or even independents who maybe didn't line up with him in a lot of ways or didn't like the way that he conducted himself voted for him anyway, because they felt that the makeup of the court was so important. And now we're seeing that elections do indeed have consequences.
Indeed, and that is really where a presidency can leave a legacy that far outlasts the presidency itself. Now, Nancy, President Trump said during the campaign that he would only appoint anti-abortion rights justices who would overturn Roe v. Wade. So could the nominee not be confirmed by Republican votes?
Well, that's an interesting question because you do have a couple of pro-abortion rights senators, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, but it isn't at all clear that their vote will hinge on that issue and that issue alone. After all, both of them voted in favor of Neil Gorsuch, who most likely lines up with most conservatives when it comes to that issue. And they've supported other judges that the president has put forward, and they really haven't made abortion rights a litmus test when voting for those judges. Now, this is a very consequential situation. You're not just replacing someone like Antonin Scalia, a conservative, with another conservative, Neil Gorsuch. In this case, you are voting for someone who could change the balance of the court and could, influence abortion cases for decades to come. And right now, Collins and Murkowski are saying very little on that front. They're not saying whether it would influence their vote one way or the other. Collins did say that she believes that Roe versus Wade is settled law, and that she is looking for judges who, whether or not they've weighed on that particular issue, who have shown a record of believing in precedent and who are comfortable with settled law. And so she says she'll be looking for that. The challenge is that senators usually don't ask nominees where they stand on a particular issue or where they would rule on a particular case. That's frowned upon. Even if they did ask, the nominee probably wouldn't answer directly. So all of these senators are going to be combing through this nominee's record looking for clues as to how they'd rule once the president names his pick.
But Nancy, apart from Roe v. Wade, there are other major issues that could be affected by Justice Kennedy's retirement, aren't there? I mean, there are some issues that he ruled in one direction that could actually be overturned with him not on the bench.
Sure. It all depends on what comes before the Supreme Court and which cases the justices decide to take. You know, the makeup of the court influences not only how they rule on particular cases, but which cases they decide to hear in the first place. So this has huge implications, not just on abortion, as you pointed out, but on education, on health care, on voting rights, on money in politics. Every issue across the board could go before this court over the next couple of decades.
On gay marriage, even.
On gay marriage, absolutely. And that's why you've got Democrats saying that they're going to fight, but it's really unclear what they can truly do to fight, Tanya, and they know it. Because the Senate can now pass confirm a nominee with a simple majority, Democrats can stand up, they can shout, they can hold rallies, but beyond that, there are very few delaying tactics at their disposal.
All right, Nancy Cortes in Washington, thank you.
You're welcome.